have a friend who used to always tell me, Chris, you overthink, you analyze your thoughts too much. And I looked at her life and saw the repeating patterns of pain and upset and heartbreak. And I kept on telling her, I really think therapy would help you. And so we were looking at this from opposite ends of the spectrum. Me, I've had therapy for the better part of 8 years. I'm very into self-development. I've had other experiences through things like dance and tantra and more recently psychedelics. And she just didn't want to open up at all. Recently, she had a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. And now she is having therapy, which is helping her get her life in order. But I can't help but think that actually she had a point about me. Because what I'm finding right now is I am trying to incorporate a meditation practice which involves not analyzing. It involves just observing and letting go thoughts, and then returning to something that I'm intentionally focusing on. And the analytical part of me wants to understand these thoughts and wants to jump into them. And most of the meditation I did before this was very free. It was whatever comes to mind, I'm going to explore and process it and let it all out. And now I'm told, no, come back to this task that you have. In a gentle and loving way, but to come back and focus on this. And what is happening in me is I'm having a real conflict. And what I've discovered is I was basically trying to take my therapist's role in analyzing my own thoughts. Not just to be analyzed, but to also co-analyze with him. But why did I do that? Well, if I can understand something, or so I thought, I can have some control over it. So the chaotic and difficult and scary parts of life aren't so scary anymore. But actually, in the therapeutic process, what actually changes things is not understanding it, but simply observing it. So if I observe a thought that was previously unconscious, or a thought pattern that was previously unconscious, simply the act of observing it changes it. If I meet that with love and acceptance and forgiveness, then it has freedom to change. But instead, all I was doing, not all, but a lot of what I was doing was trying to dissect and analyze and control and put into boxes, because then I knew what it was. And it's very comforting to have a story that you understand, because if you understand where you came from, then you can understand who you are today and understand where you might be going. But the truth is, the past doesn't exist, and neither does the future. All you have, all I have, all anyone has, is the present moment. I noticed that I hold on to some memories, such as past relationships or dating encounters, as a way of comforting myself that I have and can be loved, that I can be with beautiful women that deeply excite me and that I can really have a deep bond with. But it's not even necessarily about that, it's also a way of holding on to them. I don't think I've ever stopped loving anyone that I've ever really loved. I have memories of one girl I dated last year who I noticed her in the gym, she was super fit and looked amazing. And then I saw her again, I just gave her a compliment and left it there. I didn't want to try picking her up in the gym. But then I saw her again outside, and then I spoke to her and we got a short conversation. We met and went on a few dates. And she was someone who was so thoughtful and sweet and kind. And she brought out a lot of the best in me, and also some of my insecurities came out then, which was actually a launch pad for working on some very deep things. Actually, probably was a big part of leading up to everything I've done in the past year or so. So that encounter was really useful to me, but I remember her sitting on my bed naked and the sun was shining through the curtains, and I could just see this rays of sun on her face and her smile. And for me, and I said to her, you will always be that girl smiling in the sunshine. So there's something in that memory that, even though this fling didn't last very long and she left the country, I was holding on to her. But I actually think all stories that we tell ourselves are fantasies, because we can't possibly remember all parts of it. And all stories we tell about the future, we don't really think of all parts of life, we just think of highlights. Life is always going to feel like life. There's always going to be dishes to be done, there's always going to be apartments to clean. It's never going to feel like a movie. But about that holding on to relationships, I think we do this within relationships as well. We pick out, when things are not good, we pick out the best parts of our memories with someone and we hold on to that. That's the person we're in a relationship with, the imagination, not necessarily the person we have in front of us. And something that I hear a lot in men's circles is this idea of relational equity, that I've put in so much work over the years that, I put her through college, I took her everywhere, and now she suddenly decides that, well, she wants someone else, or she doesn't want me. Doesn't all that I've done count for something? And there was a sociologist, I can't remember his first name, but anyway, he came up with, his last name was Briffault, and Briffault's law says that in animals where there is not a benefit to the female, the relationship does not exist. And that's in the present moment. And women do tend to be more in the present moment than men. Men are thinking, okay, we've got this story of the past, we've got this strategic vision of the future. And okay, this is in general. Don't get caught up by the minorities, please. Let's just talk about 90% of the time here. But in general, men are focused on longer term past and future, and women are much more focused on the present. And so I think women are actually right in this. I think the woman's perspective of what is important right now, which was a very important evolutionary adaptation which allowed us to survive as a species. Because if women were not pursuing the strongest mates, as they perceived, then we wouldn't have survived. And so if the man in a relationship is getting lazy, if he thinks, well, I've got her now, I don't need to put any more effort, then she will quite naturally begin to lose feelings, and the relationship will become strained. And maybe she'll find someone else. So there's no point being tied to this story of what you had in the past. You need to be continually creating an exciting present moment. And this is not just the man's responsibility, it's both partners' responsibility. The relationship expert and psychologist Esther Perel said, you have many relationships during your life. Some are with the same person. Because the person you entered the relationship with if it's a long-term relationship, will not be the same person after a year, after 2, after 5, after 10. You both have to keep evolving and keep developing. And human beings desire variety. Some people get variety by looking for other people. But that variety can also be found by becoming different people. By continuing to work on yourself, by continuing to develop yourself, by exploring everything that's inside. Most of what we are inside is below the surface. My friend Kasha, who is in some ways the opposite of me. She is introverted, I'm extroverted. She is a former international model, I'm Chris. She really understands me, and something she said to me the last time she saw me, now she lives in the US, was, Chris, every time I meet you, you've changed. And I think that should be what everyone is doing. Because if you are to have a successful relationship, you need to always be reinventing yourself. Not to be radically different or fake or pretending to be someone you're not, but to remove the things that prevent you from being who you really are. And life changes and gives you additional challenges which will encourage you to grow in different directions. So while we can hold on to memories that are pleasant and have an idea of what we would like in the future, I think it's important not to hold too tight. Because if we're holding too tight, it's for a reason. It tends to be as a comfort blanket more than just a source of enjoyment. And thank you very much for listening.